Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my best books of 2020 or books that I read in 2020. So yeah, when I was actually planning for this video I realised a lot of the books that I read were 4-star reads, because I do think I pick my books very carefully and I look at reviews and I check that I will actually like the book before I waste my time reading it. So a lot of them were 4-star reviews, but these ones were all my 5 stars this year, and I think I've got a couple honourable mentions for like 4.5 stars as well. So without further ado, let's just get on with it. I also have a glass of cider actually. I think this is berries and cherries, because it is Christmas after all. Anyway, so the first 5-star book that I read this year was Mystic River by Dennis Lehane, and I love this book so much I literally couldn't put it down. I'd put it down for like 10 minutes and I'd be like, I need to know what happens next. So I read through it really quick. It basically starts with these 3 kids who were all friends as children, and then one day one of the boys gets into a car with a strange man and he goes missing for a few days. Then we start, it's like 20 to 30 years later, and the 3 boys are all now grown up. They all still live in the small town. One of the guy's kids is found dead, one of the guys becomes a suspect, and the other guy is the police officer that is investigating the crime. If you hear any random noises, my cat is hyper and he keeps running around, so sorry about that. Yeah, this book was really good. It was a really good thriller, but I also felt really like emotionally invested in the characters, especially one of the boys, the boy who goes missing at the start. And it's one of those stories where I didn't really want it to end, or I wanted to like keep going with these guys and see what happened next. So yeah, loved that book. The second book that I gave a 5-star this year was I'm Thinking of Anything by Ian Reid, and this one has been talked about all over on BookTube for the last year. I actually listened to this as an audiobook as recommended by quite a lot of people, and I would highly recommend the audiobook for reading this book. I think you get the best payoff at listening to it unfold as opposed to reading it. I'm not really an audiobook kind of person, but I think in this case it worked really well. The story of I'm Thinking of Anything is a girl and her boyfriend going to visit his parents' house, and she's going to meet them for the first time, but we're following her perspective and she's thinking of ending things with him. It's really atmospheric. It's set during a snowstorm and it's just really creepy and unsettling. I was genuinely really terrified listening to this audiobook. I would be like feeling like someone was behind me or that someone was watching me. Also, it felt really like clever, because there's certain points that you can read back on and everything seems to make even more sense. I was thinking one thing was going to happen and it was like completely not what I expected at all, which was so cool. Oh, and also if you've not seen the film on Netflix, I wouldn't bother. I thought it was really bad. I was so underwhelmed with it. I thought it would be really good on film as well, but it was just so bad, and the ending was literally not even close to what the ending of the book is. I just really didn't get it. Wasn't a fan. If you've watched the film and not the audiobook, definitely try the audiobook, give it a chance, because it was so good. Next up on my list is one that I do actually now own, which I didn't at the time, so I did read this on audiobook, but it's Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I feel like this is oddly hit or miss for a lot of people. I've seen this on like people's worst books of the year, and I've seen people really loved it. I was on the really loved it side. I don't often read romances ever, really. I heard that they were coming out with a TV show for this book. I saw the trailer, thought it was really good, and I'd heard things about it anyway, so I figured I would give it a go. And me and my best friend were reading it like at a similar time, and we both messaged each other like, oh my god, like please can they get together, like oh. So sorry, it's actually so dark. It's winter in England and it's 2:45 and it's literally so grey outside and it's just so dark, and I'm very conscious that it will be dark, but sorry. So this book follows Marianne and Connell in Ireland, and they meet in school. They start a relationship, sexual relationship, when they're in school, and then it follows them as they go to university and as they like come into and out of each other's lives again. And oh, it was just so good. But one thing that really did irritate me in this book, and I know that that's what a lot of people don't like it for, is there was a lot of miscommunication in this book. A lot of issues that could easily have just been sorted if one of the characters had just said what they actually felt at that time. And it is frustrating, but I don't know. That's part of what got me invested, I think, was that I was like, oh my god. So depends whether that's going to annoy you or not. Maybe if I reread it, it would annoy me because I just want to like shake them. But yeah, that is something that is quite prevalent in normal people, is characters just not saying what they want to say. So I think I cried at this book, or maybe I almost did. But also, if you're not sure about reading this book, you've heard mixed things, give the TV show a go. The TV show was so good. I really loved it. The actors were so good. But yeah, this was probably like the only romance I read this year, and I really liked it. But I'm a bit put off by the cheesy sort of romances, and this is definitely not a cheesy one. It is definitely quite like relatable, normal, which is what I liked about it. The fourth one that I really loved this year was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and this is more of a historical, wartime, epic, drama, romancy type book. It's basically following two sisters as they each rebel in their own slightly different ways. One of them is a lot more outgoing, passionate, she's younger, and then the older sister has a child. Her husband is fighting in the war and she's trying to keep her head down, but also rebelling against the Nazi invasion in her own little ways, as becomes clearer throughout the book. I really like Kristen Hanna's writing. She made the setting so beautiful at the start, and you could just see it get more and more war-torn and impoverished, and it was just so beautiful but also horrible to read. I really loved the relationship between the two sisters and how war was affecting them. They were falling out, they were coming back together, and I also thought that the sense of dread that like increases throughout the book was really well done. At the start they're almost in disbelief that they're even at war, they think they'll be out of it within a few months, and then as we get to like years and years later, things are a lot more scary. And yeah, it was a very emotional book. It had a really sad ending. I did cry at the end. It's a lot about the characters and I really enjoyed it. Then one that I read fairly recently, and I raved about it in one of my videos. I had to take a reading break after it because I was just like, nothing can top that emotional rollercoaster, and that was Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. As I said in that video, it's not going to be for everyone because it is about consensual incest between a brother and sister, and I know it's weird, but it was honestly so good. I lied, I did read a romance. So actually both of the two like romances ended up being two of my favourites, so maybe I should start reading some more romance because it obviously gets me very emotionally invested. Yes, it's about a brother and sister who are looking after their three younger siblings because their dad is no longer in the picture and their mum is not a very good mum. She's dealing with her own problems, alcoholism, she's often with her boyfriend who doesn't live with them. So the two older siblings are acting sort of as mum and dad. They've got this weird relationship where they're like looking after the kids, and yeah, eventually they start to realise that maybe they have feelings for each other that they shouldn't, and it was so sad. I really liked the brother character, especially in this book. He was really smart and he clearly tried to resist his feelings, but ultimately they can't be resisted. But I also liked how it was about this family that was struggling, about the younger kids. One of them is like hanging around with the wrong crowd and, you know, staying out late and stuff. So like these two older siblings are trying to parent him. They've got the younger kids who were all basically starving hungry. They've got to cook them tea every night. I know it sounds like proper dull, but I don't mean to make it sound really boring, and I usually hate like domestic kind of books, but I think in this case it was a lot more interesting than just your normal parent story because it was these two kids essentially parenting kids. And I did feel a lot of the pressure and the stress that they were under, trying to juggle school, these feelings for each other, looking after the kids, having a lack of like parental supervision. Forbidden was probably my favourite book that I read this year actually. I bawled my eyes out like a little baby. I was on the sofa crying, hyperventilating. Oh, it was just so sad. I actually had to put it down after certain lines because I was just that sad at what was like going on, because oh my god, you end up rooting for them so bad even though they're brother and sister and it's not, you know. It was a very interesting story to read, and I praise Tabitha Suzuma for writing this because I think it must be quite daunting to approach something like this and try and get it published, because she probably got quite a lot of hate for that. I honestly thought it was beautiful, spectacular, insane, loved it so much. And last but not least, on my favourite books of the year was The Troop by Nick Cutter, and this book was faultless, absolutely perfection. The Troop is a horror story following a group of scouts who travel to this island like just off of their town with the scoutmaster, and they're basically on like a weekend trip away, and they're gonna like try and get some of their badges and like camp out and all that jazz. Then on the island they come across this man who is very creepy looking. He's very skinny, he's very frantic, and without wanting to spoil anything, things go terribly wrong, and this book scared me so much. It made me feel so sick. The writing is that good. I couldn't eat because I just felt so disgusting and queasy. You're gonna need a strong stomach if you try and go into this one. It is very disgusting, but I really loved the story. I loved the characters. I thought the horrible boy character was so well written. He was just so creepy and terrifying and scary. I also really liked how it combined like the story with like newspaper clippings, and then it also had medical reports and like lab experiment reports and things like that, and that was really interesting. And I also really liked how they talked about what was going on in like the outside world as well, and potentially why this guy was there on the island in the first place. Honestly, it was so good. Like, I couldn't tell you anything that I didn't like about it. It was all amazing. So if you like horror, definitely give that one a go, as long as you can be prepared to feel sick quite often. So those were all the books that I gave 5 stars to this year. I read I think a total of 34 books, and so that's what, 6 books got 5 stars. And I also have 2 honourable mentions. 1, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, and 2, Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. These both got 4 out of 5 for me. The reason I'm saying The Silent Patient is because I think I probably would have given it a 5 out of 5 had I got into it completely blind, not knowing anything about the story, the reviews, anything like that. I really loved that book and I loved the ending, but I just wish I'd got into it not expecting anything, you know what I mean. Then She Was Gone I gave like 4.5 out of 5, but that's one that I still think about quite a lot now, and I read that like in the middle of this year. That's like a thriller book, but it's also like really emotional, and it's a lot about the characters and the family of a missing girl, as opposed to like all about the missing girl herself. That's all for this video. I'm now going to film a video of my worst / most disappointing books of this year, so stick around for that one as well if you're interested, and I will see you next time. Also, I apologise for how dark it is in here, but you know, 3 PM in England in December, very dark. So yeah, see you next time. Bye.